Hello and welcome to the video lecture on the two-tier database server architecture. So we've talked about the logic distribution, so you're already familiar with the fact that the client workstation is going to handle presentation logic, some of the data processing, some of the business rules logic, again depending on the weight, whether it's a thin client or a thick client, and the server performs all of the data storage. All of the data access, so security is going to be handled at the server end, and the processing. And again, there could be some mix of how much processing is handled on the client and the server. The database management system is only going to be on the server, so author wants to be clear on that, so let's be clear on that. Graphically, what it looks like is you typically have your client machines using your front-end programs, and accessing the database server via some kind of LAN. So you make a request for the data, hits the database server checks, are you allowed to see that table? Can you make updates to this table? Those kinds of security checks. It'll reach into itself and look to the database management system to find the data. The data might not physically be on the database server, right? It might be striped across disks on other machines, but for now, for ease and simplicity purposes, we'll say that it's all within the database server. And then what actually gets sent back across the LAN is selected data only, which kind of goes back to what we were dealing with in Chapter 7 as far as efficiently handling data. So again, when we're talking about a LAN and we're talking network traffic, we certainly want to reduce the network traffic to make sure that the only data that's flying across our networks is necessary for the user. Characteristics of a two-tier client-server system, it's really departmental in scope. We're not talking about a lot of users, although the number of users can be fairly large, but when we're talking few users, we're talking really, as far as a large scale, a few users, a couple of hundred is a few users. Typically, a client-server system is not mission critical, but it certainly can be. Don't let that mislead you. There are low transaction volumes, although again, in a lot of scenarios, there could be a lot of transactions going on in the client-server system. Programming languages used: Java, VB.NET, C#, and typically the interface between the database and the clients is via middleware and APIs. And what are we talking about with that? So when you're talking about middleware, it's typically software that allows the application to operate with other software, so that you're not going to have to rewrite code every time you write a new program. All right, so the middleware is basically prepackaged software that lets your front end talk to your back end. APIs or application programming interfaces. You've probably heard a lot about these, especially if into your phone apps and stuff. Google has a lot of APIs, and who's the other one that has a lot of APIs? It's Google, and Apple has a lot of APIs that are just out there that you can use to make your own phone apps. We're not going to talk so much about those, but the common database types of APIs, you have ODBC, you have ADO, ADO.NET, you have JDBC, the Java database connectivity. The O in ODBC is outer database connectivity. ADO.NET is ADO and .NET are Microsoft APIs that again help you makes it much easier for you to set up your front end and have your front end talk to your back end without having to, for instance, Oracle has Oracle Forms. You may not want to design your front end in Oracle Forms. You may want to design your front end in Microsoft Access. You might want to write it in HTML or some kind of web language, Perl, right? So middleware and APIs allow you to develop your front end and in one language and have your storage in another language and make them both easy to use. So the first thing you want to do when you're using middleware APIs, you want to identify and register a database driver, right? So you're going to tell the system, this is the driver that I'm going to use. And what do I mean by a driver? A driver is a translator. So you're going to have Microsoft Access speaks database in one language, and Oracle speaks it in a different dialect. So you're going to need a driver to speak between the two of them. Once you have that driver set up, you're going to open up a connection to the database. Then you can execute queries, process the results of the queries, then do that over and over again if need be. And then, as usual, you always want to close your connection to the database and do your cleanup, your garbage collection. And that is the end of my video lecture on 2 and 3 tier architectures, 2 tier architectures and the use of middleware APIs.